You've heard people talking about cheap farms for sale in central Portugal. And you might be thinking, is it worth buying a farm with a ruin on it and rebuilding the ruin so that you've got a place to stay? For years, I've traveled the world with my children and lived and worked in many different countries. Now that my children are independent adults, it's time for me to realize my childhood dream and own a farm. In June 2020, I bought an old farm in central Portugal that hadn't been worked on for 50 years. My name is Cindy. Join me and follow my journey as I try and restore the stone cottage and turn the land into a working farm again. Welcome to Quinta da Bela Pedra, my Portuguese farm. Rebuilding or restoring a ruin is not as easy as you might think. It does sound romantic, to rebuild a ruin, but there are some questions that you have to ponder. Like, is this going to be a full-time or a part-time project? And where will you stay when you're renovating? How much are you going to do yourself? And how much of a ruin can you handle? So if you have to go onto one of these estate agent websites like Remax, Portugal, you'll find lots and lots of properties with ruins on for sale. So sometimes they might say, if they say it's like a house to recover, that means that it has all its permissions already. If they're saying that you're rebuilding a ruin, then you've got to know that it's going to you're going to have to consider your budget. And sometimes it might be easier to build from scratch than to recover a ruin. Just know that the estate agents will tell you what they think you want to hear. So they will tell you that you can live on the land, you can always, while you're recovering the ruin, you can put up a mobile home. But just know that in Portugal, you can't officially build on rustic land. So if the land is urban or it has a ruin, or the ruin has a habitation license, or it's been registered for habitation, you can rebuild in the existing area. If the building had agricultural status, then you need to go through the whole planning process and to get it changed to urban, and that is not easy. Restoring a ruin still needs planning if you are going to be making changes to the exterior. And sometimes the planning process can take up to 4 years. There is actually so much confusion with this whole rebuilding ruins and what land you can build on, because it is slightly different in different camera. let's rephrase it. It's not different in the camera. The law remains the same. It's just the law is interpreted differently. So I've done a lot of research because I've had quite a lot of questions about ruins and if it's worth buying property with a ruin. So what you need to know is that houses which were built before 1951 do not need a rebuild permit within certain legal boundaries. I'm not sure exactly what they are, haven't been able to find that out. But if you add on another floor level, then that can get you in trouble. Any electrical work, you need to get a certified electrician, and it's exactly the same with gas, getting gas put in. But you need to find out what you can do from the local camera. So if your ruin predates 1951, then for any internal renovations, you don't need licensing. If you are extending the ruin, which involves, it's going to involve hiring an architect and drawing up plans. So the big tip is to avoid cash work and always pay with bank transfer. So just looking through some of my notes here. So all residential property after 1951 has to have a habitation license. And it's got to show that the camera has inspected the property. You cannot officially build habitation on rustic land. Habitations without foundations are okay in some camera. So that's like yurts and mobile homes. You can renovate or make changes as long as you don't make structural changes. If you put in a window in a stone wall, you actually need permission from the camera. You need to have proof that the ruin existed before 1951. Anything built before 1951 is considered legal. You got to make sure the ruin is not on conservation land. Quite often in rural areas, property has two articles. They've got the house with the square meterage and the habitation, and the land square meterage, which is rustic. And so you'll get your urban article and your rustic article, and that's what I have for my property. If you add on to the structure, then the entire house is going to require a habitation license and has to be brought up to code, even if this is pre-August 1951. So pre-August 1951 with no additions after that date, there just needs to be a certificate on record that it is a home meant for a dwelling and was built before the habitation certificate was required. Converting non-habitation areas like animal areas constitutes an addition, and this makes the entire restored ruin need a habitation license. So to sum up, your ruin must have been built before August 1951. There's got to be proof of that, and with the proof, it's got to show that it was built for habitation and not as an agricultural building. Because you drive around the countryside in Portugal, you see so many abandoned properties with these ruins on, and it is tempting to buy one because the property is a lot cheaper, but you're going to have to do your homework first. So work out a budget. Make sure you've got someone that can translate things for you, and make sure your property has access to get the materials you're going to need to rebuild the ruin. I apologize for the poor lighting, but it's getting dark quickly, quite early at the moment. So I am really conscious of the fact that I was really lucky to be able to buy a 2.5 hectare property that had two articles, one for which was urban articles for the house, and the article for the rustic or agricultural land. And so yeah, I'm very conscious that I was quite lucky. You're not going to get that with each ruin, because some of the ruins were just animal houses. They weren't, people didn't live there. And there's a lot of people who are fixing up barns and turning them into houses. And I suppose it depends on the camera, but the research that I've done is that you actually need to get planning permission to do that. But you know what? Some camera might be okay with it. So you have to do your research. You have to find out what is allowed, and if necessary, get yourself a lawyer or like I think it's called the solicitado or something like that. It's a person, they're not a lawyer, but they are able to read all the documents and advise you and help you through the process. So best of luck if you are wanting to buy a farm in Portugal. And yeah, just try and do everything by the book, and then you'll be okay. But in saying that, the way the book is interpreted is sometimes a little bit tricky. So if this has been helpful to you, and even if this hasn't been helpful to you, if you can like and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to be notified about upcoming videos, I'll be extremely grateful. So have a good one and keep safe.